The USS Horizon drifted through the empty darkness of space, its silver hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as his ship approached the Kepler 442 system. The year was 2387, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Federation for 30 years now. What had once seemed impossible was now just another day at work. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and steady blue eyes. He had spent 15 years in space, exploring new worlds and meeting strange creatures from across the galaxy. Today felt different, though. The sensors were picking up something unusual in this system, something that made his crew excited and nervous at the same time. "Commander, we're getting some interesting readings from the third planet," said Dr. Lisa Hayes, the ship's chief scientist. She was a smart woman in her early 30s with red hair and green eyes. Lisa had studied alien life forms for most of her career, but she had never seen anything quite like what the sensors were showing her now. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the gentle beeping of computer systems. The planet has a complex ecosystem with some very large life forms. The computer is having trouble identifying them, but they appear to be much bigger than anything we've seen. "Before," Lisa explained, pointing to the data on her screen. "Some of these creatures are showing up as massive heat signatures." Lieutenant Ben Carter, the ship's security officer, looked up from his post. Ben was a strong man with short black hair and dark eyes. He had served in the Federation military for 10 years and had seen his share of dangerous situations. "How massive are we talking about, Doc?" "Some of these readings suggest creatures that are 12 to 15 feet tall. The computer classifies them as apex predators," Lisa said, her voice filled with both excitement and concern. Jake nodded slowly. This was exactly the kind of discovery that made space exploration worthwhile. "What about signs of intelligent life?" "Nothing yet, but we're still scanning," Lisa replied. "The planet seems to be mostly wilderness with some very dangerous animals." Engineer Mary Watson spoke up from her station near the back of the bridge. Mary was a practical woman with blonde hair and blue eyes who kept the ship running smoothly. "Sir, I'm picking up another ship in the system. It's not human design." Jake felt his heart rate increase slightly. Meeting other Federation species was always interesting, but it could also be complicated. "Can you identify it?" "It's a Zephyrian exploration vessel," Mary said, checking her instruments. "They're broadcasting standard Federation identification codes." The Zephyrians were an interesting species that had joined the Federation about 50 years ago. They looked somewhat like giant praying mantises, with long thin bodies, large compound eyes, and 4 arms that ended in delicate manipulator hands. They were incredibly smart and had developed amazing technology, but they were also very fragile physically. Most Zephyrians could barely lift 50 pounds, and their bones broke easily. "Open a communication channel," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the alien ship. The Zephyrian captain appeared on screen, his large eyes reflecting the light from his ship's instruments. "Greetings, human vessel," the alien said in perfect English. The Federation's universal translator made communication between species much easier. "I am Captain Vexhai of the Zephyrian research ship Bright Star. We are conducting a scientific survey of this system." "Hello, Captain Vexhai. I'm Commander Jake Morrison of the USS Horizon. We're also here for exploration and research," Jake replied with a friendly smile. Captain Vexhai's mandibles clicked together in what Jake recognized as a sign of interest. "Excellent. Perhaps we could combine our efforts. This planet has proven to be quite fascinating, though also quite dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Jake asked. "The wildlife is extremely aggressive and powerful. We have been studying them from orbit, because it would be too risky to land on the surface. The apex predators of this world are unlike anything in our databases," Captain Vexhai explained. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her scientific curiosity taking over. "What kind of predators are we talking about?" "The largest ones appear to be creatures we have designated as shadow maws. They are approximately 12 feet tall, with massive claws and teeth. Our scans show they have incredibly tough hide that can resist most energy weapons. They also appear to have some form of acidic saliva, Captain Vexhai said. Ben Carter frowned. Have you tried to capture one for study? Absolutely not, Captain Vexhai replied quickly. These creatures are far too dangerous. No known species has ever successfully captured or killed a shadow maw. They are considered one of the most deadly predators in this sector of the galaxy. Jake found this information both concerning and intriguing. But surely with proper equipment and precautions we could study them safely? Captain Vexhai's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently on Jake. Commander Morrison, no disrespect, but humans are not physically suited for encounters with such creatures. Your species, while intelligent, lacks the natural defenses or strength that would be necessary to survive contact with a shadow maw. Lisa stepped forward again. What if we worked together? Combined our resources and knowledge? That is an interesting proposition, Captain Vexhai said, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Our technology is quite advanced, and we have extensive databases on dangerous alien life forms. Your human curiosity and adaptability might complement our scientific methods well, Jake considered the offer. Working with the Zephyrians would give them access to better equipment and more knowledge about the planet's dangers. It would also be a good opportunity to strengthen relations between their species. I think that sounds like an excellent idea, Jake said. We could establish a joint research camp on the planet's surface. A research camp? Captain Vexhai seemed surprised. On the surface? That would be extremely dangerous. We have good defensive equipment and trained security personnel, Jake assured him. With your technology and our adaptability, we should be able to handle whatever challenges we face. Captain Vexhai was quiet for a moment, his large eyes blinking slowly. Very well. We will attempt this joint expedition. However, I must insist that we establish the camp in the safest possible location, far from any known Shadow Maw territories. Agreed, Jake said. When do you want to start? We can begin preparations immediately. My science officer, Dr. Clichter, will coordinate with your team to select an appropriate landing site. Captain Vexhai replied. After the communication ended, Jake turned to his crew. Well, team, it looks like we're going to have some interesting alien companions for this mission. Ben looked concerned. Sir, these shadow maws sound pretty dangerous. Are you sure we're ready for something like that? We've handled dangerous situations before, Ben. Besides, we'll be working with the Zephyrians. Their technology should help keep us safe, Jake replied confidently. Lisa was already pulling up data on her computer. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Imagine what we could learn from studying such unique predators. Mary nodded from her station. I'll make sure our equipment is ready for planetary deployment. We'll need to set up proper defensive systems. As the USS Horizon began its approach to the planet, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. This was why he had joined the Federation Space Service, to explore new worlds and discover amazing things. He had no idea that in just a few days he would face a challenge that would test not just his courage, but the very limits of what it meant to be human. The planet Kepler 442 be hung in space below them, a blue and green world that looked peaceful from orbit. But Jake knew that appearances could be deceiving in space. Some of the most beautiful worlds held the greatest dangers. All right, people, Jake said to his crew. Let's get ready for our next adventure. The morning sun cast long shadows across the surface of Kepler 442 as two shuttles descended through the planet's atmosphere. The first shuttle carried Commander Jake Morrison and his human crew, while the second transported Captain Vexhai and his Zephyrian team. Both ships landed in a clearing that their combined sensors had identified as the safest location on the entire planet. Dr. Lisa Hayes stepped out of the human shuttle and took her first breath of alien air. The atmosphere was breathable for humans. Though it smelled different from Earth, there was a sweet scent in the air mixed with something that reminded her of pine trees. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal, making each step feel a bit bouncy. The air composition is perfect for both species, Lisa said into her communicator. Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth standard. From the Zephyrian shuttle, Dr. Clichter emerged with careful, measured movements. The alien scientist was even more fragile-looking than Captain Vexhai, with thin limbs that seemed almost transparent in the sunlight. His compound eyes moved constantly, scanning the environment for any signs of danger. Dr. Hayes, it is a pleasure to work with you directly, Dr. Clichter said, his voice carrying the slight buzzing quality common to all Zephyrians. I have studied human research methods and find them quite interesting, though somewhat reckless. Lisa smiled as she walked over to meet him. We prefer to think of it as thorough hands-on investigation. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ben Carter was setting up a perimeter around their landing site. The human security officer moved with practiced efficiency, placing motion sensors and defensive barriers in a wide circle around both shuttles. His Federation-issued energy rifle hung easily across his shoulder. Ready for immediate use, Sub-Captain Vexlon? The Zephyrian military commander watched Ben work with obvious interest. Vexlon was larger than the other Zephyrians, though, still much smaller than any human. His exoskeleton had a darker coloration that marked him as a warrior cast among his people. Your defensive preparations are quite different from ours, Vexlon observed, his mandibles clicking with curiosity. We typically rely on energy shields and automated systems. Sometimes the simple approaches work best, Ben replied, checking the settings on another sensor. Motion detectors, clear sight lines, and good positioning can stop most threats before they become dangerous. Vexlon activated a small device on his arm, and a shimmering energy field appeared around his body. This personal shield can stop most energy weapons and provides protection against physical attacks. All Zephyrians use them when away from our ships. Ben nodded with approval. That's impressive technology. Our body armor is more basic, but it's proven effective in combat situations. While the security teams worked, engineer Mary Watson was busy setting up the main research camp. She worked alongside Quindal, the Zephyrian technician, to establish power systems and communication equipment. The two of them made an odd pair, Mary with her practical human engineering approach and Quindal with his incredibly advanced but delicate alien tools. Your equipment is much more robust than ours, Quindal observed as Mary assembled a standard Federation power generator. It appears designed to withstand significant damage. Human equipment has to be tough, Mary explained, connecting power cables with quick, efficient movements. We tend to work in harsh environments, and our gear needs to keep functioning no matter what happens to it. Quindal held up one of his own tools, a device that looked like it was made of crystal and light. This scanner can analyze molecular structures from a distance of several kilometers, but it would break if dropped from even a small height. Different approaches for different species? Mary said with a grin. Your stuff is more advanced, but mine will still work after being thrown off a cliff. As the day progressed, both teams worked together to establish a fully functional research station. The humans contributed their durability and practical problem-solving skills, while the Zephyrians provided advanced technology and scientific knowledge. The cooperation was going better than anyone had expected. Dr. Hayes and Dr. Clichter set up a joint laboratory where they could study samples and analyze data together. The Zephyrian scientist was fascinated by human research methods, especially their willingness to handle specimens directly rather than using remote manipulation tools. You actually touch the samples with your bare hands? Dr. Clichter asked, watching Lisa examine a plant specimen. Sometimes that's the best way to understand something, Lisa replied. Human senses can detect things that instruments might miss. Remarkable, Dr. Clichter said. Zephyrians would never risk direct contact with unknown biological material. Captain Vexhai and Commander Morrison worked together to plan their research activities. The Zephyrian captain had extensive data about the planet's wildlife, including detailed information about the various predator species that lived in different regions. The Shadowmaws typically hunt in the deep forest regions, Captain Vexhai explained, pointing to a holographic map. They avoid open areas like this clearing during daylight hours. Our current location should be safe for several days. What about the smaller predators? Jake asked, studying the map carefully. There are several species of pack hunters, but they rarely attack groups larger than 3 or 4 individuals. With our combined teams, we should be able to deter them easily. Captain Vexhai replied. As evening approached, both teams settled into their camp routine. The Zephyrians activated a network of automated sentries that would patrol the perimeter. During the night, the small robots moved silently through the trees, their sensors constantly scanning for any signs of danger. Ben Carter established a watch schedule that included both human and Zephyrian security personnel. "I'll take first watch with Sub-Captain Nexlon," he announced. "We'll rotate every 4 hours." The Zephyrian warrior nodded his agreement. "My sensors will complement your visual observation methods. Together we should be able to detect any threats well before they reach the camp." As the alien sun set, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Dr. Hayes made her first major discovery. While examining soil samples near the camp, she found traces of an unknown protein that seemed to be present in all the local plant life. "This is incredible," Lisa said, showing her findings to Dr. Clichter. "This protein appears to be what makes the plants on this world so hardy. It might also explain why the animals here are so much larger than those on other planets." Dr. Clichter's compound eyes reflected the light from their instruments as he studied the data. "Yes, I see it now. This protein seems to enhance cellular repair and growth. The creatures here are not just larger, they are also more resilient." The implications were significant. If the local wildlife was enhanced by this biological factor, it meant that the predators were even more dangerous than they had initially believed. The shadow maws were not just big and strong, they were also incredibly tough and able to heal from wounds that would kill other creatures. During the night, the automated sentries detected several smaller predators moving through the forest around their camp. The robots' warning systems activated, sending alerts to both security teams. Ben and Nexlon watched their instruments carefully as the creatures circled the perimeter, testing their defenses. 6 heat signatures moving in coordinated patterns, Nexlon reported. "They appear to be pack hunters, similar to the species we have designated as forest stalkers. They're staying just outside our sensor range," Ben observed. "Smart animals. They know we're here, but they're not sure what we are." The standoff continued for several hours, with the predators maintaining their distance while the security teams remained alert. Finally, as dawn approached, the creatures retreated back into the deep forest, apparently deciding that the camp was too well defended to risk an attack. "First contact with the local wildlife," Jake said as the teams gathered for breakfast. "Not too bad for our first night." Captain Vexhai seemed less optimistic. "The forest stalkers are relatively minor predators. If they were testing our defenses, it means word is spreading among the local animals that we are here." "You think bigger predators might investigate?" Lisa asked. "It is possible," Captain Vexhai replied. "The electromagnetic signatures from our equipment might attract larger creatures. We should remain vigilant." As the second day of their expedition began, neither team realized that their greatest challenge was already moving through the forest. Toward them, deep in the shadows of the ancient trees, something massive was following the scent of unfamiliar creatures. The Shadow Maw had caught their trail. The third day on Kepler 442 started peacefully enough. Dr. Lisa Hayes was working with Dr. Clichter to catalog the morning specimen collection when the first warning alarm sounded from the perimeter sensors. The sharp electronic beep echoed through the camp, causing everyone to look up from their work. "Perimeter breach, Sector 7, Ben Carter announced, checking his monitoring station. "Something big is moving through the forest toward us." Sub-Captain Nexlon activated his personal scanner, his compound eyes reflecting the device's blue glow. "Heat signature is massive, much larger than the forest stalkers we encountered yesterday." Commander Jake Morrison joined them at the security station, studying the readings on the screens. The approaching creature showed up as a huge red blob on their thermal sensors, moving steadily through the trees in their direction. "How big are we talking about?" Jake asked. though he suspected he already knew the answer. Approximately 12 feet tall, based on the heat signature, Dexlon replied, his mandibles clicking with concern. The movement pattern matches our data on Shadowmaw behavior. Captain Vexhai hurried over from the Zephyrian shuttle, his thin legs carrying him as fast as they could manage. A Shadowmaw? Are you certain? The size and approach pattern are consistent with our previous observations, Dr. Clichter confirmed, abandoning his scientific samples to check the readings himself. It appears to be following the electromagnetic trail from our equipment. Mary Watson quickly began shutting down non-essential systems to reduce their electronic signature. I can minimize our power output, but the life support and defensive systems need to stay online. It may be too late for that, Captain Vexhai said grimly. Once a Shadowmaw picks up a scent trail, it will follow it until it finds its target. The creature was still several hundred meters away, but it was moving steadily toward their camp. Through the trees, they could occasionally glimpse a massive, dark shape pushing through the undergrowth. Branches cracked and small trees bent aside as the apex predator made its way toward them. Activating defensive protocols, Vexlon announced. Immediately, the Zephyrian automated sentries moved into position around the camp's perimeter. The small robots were equipped with plasma cannons and energy shields, representing the most advanced defensive technology the Zephyrians had available. Ben Carter readied his energy rifle and activated the camp's defensive barriers. The Federation equipment was sturdy and reliable, though less advanced than the Zephyrian systems. All personnel should move to the center of the camp, he ordered. The Shadowmaw emerged from the forest like a living nightmare. It stood 12 feet tall on powerful hind legs, its dark gray hide covered in natural armor plates that gleamed in the sunlight. Massive claws extended from its front limbs, each one longer than a human hand. Its head was dominated by a huge mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth, and acidic saliva dripped from its jaws, hissing as it hit the ground. "By the 7 moons," Dr. Clichter whispered, his voice filled with terror. "It is even more terrifying than our data suggested." The creature paused at the edge of the clearing, its small but intelligent eyes scanning the camp. It seemed to be evaluating the threat level of the various defensive systems arrayed against it. Then, with a roar that shook the ground, it charged. Directly at the nearest automated sentry, the Zephyrian robot immediately opened fire with its plasma cannon, sending bright bolts of energy toward the approaching predator. The plasma struck the Shadowmaw's hide, creating small scorch marks, but the creature barely seemed to notice. Its natural armor absorbed most of the energy, and what little damage was done began healing almost immediately. "The plasma weapons are ineffective," Vexlon reported, his voice tight with fear. "Its regenerative abilities are countering our attacks." The Shadowmaw reached the first robot and swatted it aside with one massive claw. The advanced machine crumpled like paper, its energy shield failing instantly under the creature's incredible strength. Sparks flew as the robot's system shut down permanently. "Fall back to secondary positions," Captain Vexhai ordered, but his voice was shaking. The Zephyrians had never faced anything that could simply ignore their most powerful weapons. Ben Carter opened fire with his Federation energy rifle, adding his weapon's power to the remaining automated defenses. The energy bolts struck the Shadowmaw's flank, but like the plasma weapons, they seemed to have no significant effect. The creature's hide was simply too tough for conventional energy weapons to penetrate. "This is not good," Ben muttered, continuing to fire even though his shots were accomplishing nothing. "Our weapons are useless against this thing." The Shadowmaw destroyed the second robot with equal ease, its claws tearing through the machine's armor like it was made of cardboard. The creature's acidic breath melted the third robot's energy shield, leaving the device defenseless against the Predator's physical assault. "All defensive systems are failing," Mary Watson reported from her position near the shuttles. "The creature is systematically destroying our perimeter defenses." Dr. Hayes grabbed her research equipment, trying to save what data she could. "We need to evacuate to the shuttles," she called out, but even as she spoke, she knew they might not have enough time. The Shadowmaw had destroyed half of their automated defenses, and was now turning its attention to the camp itself. It moved with surprising speed for such a large creature, its powerful legs carrying it toward the center of the clearing where the two species had established their research station. "The shuttles are our only hope," Captain Vexhai said, but his words lacked conviction. The creature was between them and their escape route, and it showed no signs of being deterred by their defensive efforts. Vexlon activated his personal energy shield and drew his sidearm, a compact plasma weapon, designed for close-quarters combat. "I will attempt to buy time for the evacuation," he announced bravely. "No," Jake said firmly. "We stick together. Splitting up will just make us easier targets." The Shadow Maw paused again, this time focusing its attention on the group of beings clustered near the research station. Its nostrils flared as it caught their scent, and its eyes seemed to light up with predatory interest. The creature had found what it was looking for. "It is focusing on us now," Dr. Clichter observed, his scientific mind still working even in the face of terror. "We represent the most concentrated source of the electromagnetic signatures it has been tracking." The creature began moving toward them with deliberate purpose, no longer distracted by the automated defenses. Each step it took shook the ground slightly, and its acidic breath began to corrode the metal equipment near its path. "All weapons concentrate fire on its head," Ben ordered, though he knew it was probably futile. The remaining Zephyrian robots and the human security team opened fire simultaneously, creating a barrage of energy bolts aimed at the creature's most vulnerable areas. The Shadow Maw walked through the weapon's fire like it was walking through rain. The energy bolts struck its hide, its head, and its claws, but none of them seemed to cause any meaningful damage. The creature's regenerative abilities were simply too powerful for their weapons to overcome. "This is impossible," Vexlon said, his usually steady voice filled with despair. "No creature should be able to withstand this much firepower." "Our technology is useless against it," Captain Vexhai added, his compound eyes reflecting the flashes of weapons fire. "We have no way to stop this creature." The Shadow Maw was now less than 50 meters away and closing fast. Its massive claws were extended, ready to tear through anything in its path. The acidic saliva dripping from its mouth was creating small craters in the ground where it landed. "Get ready to run," Jake told his team, though he knew they probably could not outrun the creature. The Shadow Maw was built for pursuit, and its long legs would easily overtake any fleeing prey. Lisa Hayes clutched her research data, unwilling to abandon the discoveries they had made. "There has to be something we can do," she said, but her voice was filled with desperation rather than hope. "Our advanced technology means nothing to this creature," Dr. Clichter said, his scientific mind struggling to accept the reality of their situation. "It is a force of nature that cannot be reasoned with or deterred." The Shadow Maw let out another roar, this one closer and more menacing than before. It was the sound of a predator that had cornered its prey and was preparing to strike. The creature's eyes gleamed with primitive intelligence as it studied the group of beings before it. "Everyone stay close together," Jake ordered, making a decision that would change everything. "If we are going to face this thing, we face it as a team." The apex predator of Kepler 442b began its final charge, and the fate of both human and Zephyrian crews hung in the balance. The Shadow Maw was only 30 meters away when Commander Jake Morrison made the decision that would change everything. The massive predator was charging directly at his crew, its claws extended and its acidic breath hissing through the air. Every weapon they had tried had failed. Every defense they had built had been destroyed. There was only one option left. "Everyone get back to the shuttles," Jake ordered, his voice calm despite the terror of the situation. "Move now." Dr. Lisa Hayes looked at him with confusion. "Jake, what are you doing?" "Something crazy," Jake replied, dropping his energy rifle to the ground. The weapon clattered against the metal deck plates of their research station, the sound seeming unnaturally loud in the moment before chaos. Captain Vexhai watched in horror as the human commander began walking toward the approaching monster. "Commander Morrison, you cannot face that creature without weapons. It is suicide." "Maybe," Jake said, not stopping his advance, but maybe not. Sub-Captain Exlon raised his plasma weapon, trying to provide cover fire, but Jake waved him off. Save your ammunition. You might need it to protect the others. The Shadow Maw seemed confused by Jake's approach. The creature had expected its prey to run, as all creatures did when faced with certain death. Instead, this small being was walking directly toward it, showing no fear and carrying no weapons. The predator slowed its charge, unsure how to respond to this unexpected behavior. "He has lost his mind," Dr. Clichter whispered, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. "No creature can survive direct contact with a Shadow Maw." Ben Carter started to follow his commander, but Jake turned and gave him a sharp look. "That's an order, Lieutenant. Get everyone to safety." "Sir, I can't let you do this alone," Ben protested, his hand moving toward his sidearm. "You're not letting me do anything," Jake replied firmly. "I'm ordering you to protect the others." "That's your job." Mary Watson was already moving equipment toward the shuttles, but she kept looking back at Jake with worry. "Commander, this is insane. Come back with us." "Take care of the ship, Mary," Jake called back to her. "And tell my sister I tried to do the right thing." The Shadow Maw was now only 10 meters away, its massive form towering over the human who dared to challenge it. The creature's small but intelligent eyes studied Jake carefully, trying to understand what kind of threat this tiny being might represent. Its acidic saliva dripped more heavily now. Excited by the prospect of an easy kill, Captain Vexai had activated his personal recording device, believing he was about to witness the final moments of a brave but foolish human. "This will be remembered as an act of incredible courage," he said quietly. Jake stopped walking when he was 5 meters from the Shadow Maw. The creature was even more terrifying up close, its hide scarred from countless battles with other predators. Its claws were longer than Jake's entire hand, and its teeth gleamed with a coating of corrosive saliva that could eat through metal. "Come on then," Jake said, his voice steady and strong. "Let's see what you've got." The Shadow Maw roared and swung its massive right claw at Jake's head. The blow was fast and powerful, capable of crushing stone, but Jake was faster. He ducked under the swipe and rolled to his left, coming up in a crouch beside the creature's front leg. "He dodged it," Dexlon said in amazement. "How did he move so quickly?" Jake's training kicked in as he analyzed the creature's anatomy. Years of hand-to-hand combat experience had taught him to look for weak points in any opponent. The Shadow Maw was huge and strong, but it also had joints, pressure points, and nerve clusters that could be exploited. The creature spun around to face Jake again, this time trying to bite him with its massive jaws. Jake threw himself backward, the acidic teeth snapping shut just inches from his chest. As he fell, he kicked upward with both feet, striking the creature under its chin. The kick connected with surprising force, actually snapping the Shadow Maw's head back. The creature stumbled, more surprised than hurt, but it was the first time any of their attacks had caused any visible reaction. "Did you see that?" Dr. Hayes said, her voice filled with excitement. "He actually made it react." "Impossible," Dr. Clichter replied. "The creature's hide should have absorbed that impact completely." Jake rolled to his feet and immediately moved to attack again. He had noticed something important during his kick. The creature's scales were smaller and more flexible in certain areas, particularly around the joints and neck. These spots might be vulnerable to precise strikes. The Shadow Maw tried to grab Jake with its left claw, but the human was already moving. He grabbed the creature's wrist with both hands, using his momentum to swing himself around the massive arm. The aliens watched in shock as Jake actually lifted his feet off the ground and used the creature's own limb as a pivot point. "He is using the creature's size against it," Captain Vexai observed, his mandibles clicking with amazement. "Remarkable strategy." Jake swung around the Shadow Maw's arm and delivered a powerful elbow strike to a cluster of nerves he had spotted near the creature's shoulder joint. The blow was precisely placed and delivered with all the force Jake could generate. The Shadow Maw let out a grunt of pain and surprise. "He hurt it," Ben said, unable to believe what he was seeing. "He actually hurt that thing." The creature tried to shake Jake off, but the human held on tight. He climbed higher on the creature's arm, moving toward its neck where he had seen more. Vulnerable areas. The Shadow Maw thrashed wildly, trying to dislodge its unexpected attacker. Jake reached the creature's neck and wrapped his left arm around it, holding on while he struck repeatedly at a nerve cluster behind the Shadow Maw's ear. Each blow was calculated and precise, targeting the exact spots where the creature's natural armor was thinnest. The Shadow Maw roared in pain and anger, a sound unlike any they had heard before. It was no longer the confident cry of an apex predator, but the frustrated howl of a creature that had encountered something it did not understand. "This is incredible," Lisa said, watching Jake fight the monster that had destroyed all their advanced weapons. "He's actually fighting it hand to hand." The creature tried to ram Jake against a nearby tree, but he saw the move coming and released his grip at the last second. Jake rolled away as the Shadow Maw crashed into the tree trunk, splintering the wood with the force of its impact. Jake was back on his feet immediately, circling the creature like a boxer sizing up an opponent. His clothes were torn and he had several scratches from the creature's scales, but he was still moving with fluid grace and deadly purpose. The Shadow Maw turned to face him again, but now there was something different in its eyes. The creature was no longer looking at Jake like he was prey. Now it was looking at him like he was a threat. "It is treating him as an equal," Nexlon said quietly. "I have never seen a Shadow Maw show respect for another creature before." The creature charged again, this time more cautiously. It had learned that this small opponent was dangerous and unpredictable. Jake waited until the last possible moment, then threw himself to the side and grabbed onto the creature's neck as it passed. This time, instead of striking at nerve clusters, Jake wrapped both arms around the Shadow Maw's throat. He locked his hands together and began to squeeze, applying pressure to the creature's windpipe. The move was risky. If the creature could shake him off, he would be completely vulnerable. The Shadow Maw realized what Jake was trying to do and began thrashing more violently than ever before. It rolled on the ground, trying to crush Jake beneath its weight. It clawed at the air, trying to reach the human who was choking the life out of it. "He is trying to strangle it," Dr. Clichter said, his voice filled with scientific fascination. "Can human muscle strength actually overcome a Shadow Maw's breathing capacity?" Jake held on with grim determination, his arms straining against the creature's powerful neck muscles. The Shadow Maw was incredibly strong, but Jake had positioned himself where the creature could not use its full strength effectively. It was a battle of endurance now, and Jake was betting everything on his ability to outlast the monster. The creature's movements began to slow as Jake's chokehold took effect. Its roars became weaker and more desperate. For the first time since the battle began, the Shadow Maw seemed to realize that it might actually lose this fight. "I cannot believe what I am seeing," Captain Vexhai said, his recording device capturing every moment of the impossible battle. "A human is defeating a Shadow Maw with nothing but his bare hands." The Shadow Maw's struggles were becoming weaker by the minute. Commander Jake Morrison maintained his chokehold around the creature's massive neck, his muscles screaming with effort but his grip never loosening. The apex predator that had terrorized this world for countless years was slowly losing the fight of its life to a human using nothing but his bare hands. "His endurance is incredible," Dr. Clichter observed, his compound eyes focused on Jake's determined face. "How long can a human maintain that level of physical exertion?" "Longer than you might think," Dr. Lisa Hayes replied, watching her commander with a mixture of pride and amazement. "Humans were persistence hunters on Earth. We evolved to outlast our prey over long distances and extended fights." The Shadow Maw made one final desperate attempt to throw Jake off. The creature rolled onto its back, trying to crush the human beneath its massive weight. Jake felt the ground rush up to meet him, but he refused to let go. The impact drove the air from his lungs, but his arms remained locked around the creature's throat. "He is still holding on," Sub-Captain Nexlon said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Even being crushed beneath the creature, he will not release his grip." Jake could feel the Shadow Maw's pulse through the thick hide of its neck. The creature's heart was beating faster now, working harder to pump blood through its oxygen-starved body. This was exactly what Jake had been waiting for, the moment when the creature's own biology would work against it. The Shadow Maw's claws scraped weakly at the ground, no longer able to thrash with its previous violence. Its acidic breath was coming in short, desperate gasps. The creature's small but intelligent eyes were beginning to lose their focus as Jake's chokehold took its final toll. "It is working," Captain Vexhai whispered, his recording device capturing. "Every moment of the historic battle, the human is actually winning." Jake adjusted his grip slightly, tightening his hold even further. He could feel the creature's strength fading, but he knew better than to assume victory too early. Apex predators were dangerous until their very last breath, and the Shadow Maw was the ultimate apex predator. The creature made one last attempt to bite Jake, turning its massive head as far as it could manage. Its teeth snapped shut just inches from Jake's shoulder, but the human was ready for the move. He shifted his weight and pulled the creature's head back, preventing it from reaching him. "Look at his technique," Ben Carter said, studying his commander's fighting style. "He is using leverage and position to multiply his strength. Every move is calculated." Mary Watson was watching from near the shuttles, her engineering mind analyzing the physics of what she was seeing. He is using the creature's own mass against it. The bigger it is, the more its weight works in his favor when he applies that chokehold. The Shadow Maw's eyes began to close. Its breathing became slower and more labored. The creature that had destroyed their most advanced weapons was being defeated by the most basic form of combat, one being physically overpowering another through superior technique and determination. "This should be impossible," Dr. Clichter said, his scientific mind struggling to accept what he was witnessing. "The creature's physical strength should far exceed any human capability." "Strength is not everything," Jake said through gritted teeth, speaking for the first time since the battle began. "Sometimes technique and stubbornness matter more." The Shadow Maw's massive body went limp. Its claws stopped scraping at the ground. Its acidic breath stopped hissing through the air. The apex predator of Kepler 442b was unconscious. Defeated by a human who had refused to give up when faced with impossible odds, Jake maintained his chokehold for another full minute, making sure the creature was truly unconscious and not just pretending. Only when he was certain that the Shadow Maw was completely defeated did he finally release his grip and roll away from the massive body. The clearing was completely silent except for Jake's heavy breathing as he struggled to his feet. His clothes were torn and stained with the creature's acidic saliva. His arms were covered with scratches from the Shadow Maw's scales. But he was alive, and he had won. "Commander Morrison has defeated a Shadow Maw in single combat," Captain Vexhai announced, his voice filled with awe. "This will be remembered as one of the greatest victories in Federation history." Dr. Hayes was the first to reach Jake, her medical training taking over as she checked him for serious injuries. "Are you hurt?" That acid could have caused severe burns. "I am fine," Jake replied, though his voice was hoarse from the effort. "Just tired, very tired." The Exlon approached the unconscious Shadow Maw cautiously, his scanner confirming that the creature was indeed defeated. "It is alive but unconscious. How long will it remain in this state?" "Probably several hours," Jake said, accepting Mary's help to steady himself. "But we should not be here when it wakes up. A creature like that will remember what happened, and it will be very angry." Dr. Clichter was already scanning Jake with his medical instruments, trying to understand how human physiology had made this victory possible. "Your muscle density is remarkable. Your bone structure is much stronger than our initial scans suggested. And your nervous system response time is incredibly fast. Humans are tougher than we look," Jake said with a tired smile. "We had to be. Our homeworld was full of dangerous predators, and we survived by being smarter, faster, and more stubborn than anything that tried to eat us." Captain Vexhai was still recording, documenting every detail of the aftermath. "This recording will be studied by military strategists and scientists throughout the Federation. You have proven that advanced technology is not always the answer to every problem. Sometimes the old ways work best," Ben said, helping his commander toward the shuttles. Human determination and fighting spirit. As they prepared to leave the planet, Dr. Hayes made sure to collect samples of Jake's blood and tissue for later analysis. The scientific implications of what had happened were enormous. If humans could defeat creatures that resisted the most advanced weapons, it would change how other species viewed humanity's place in the Federation. The other species will want to study this, Lisa said as they boarded the shuttles. They will want to understand how human biology makes something like this possible. Let them study, Jake replied, settling into his seat with a groan. Maybe they will learn something useful. The shuttles lifted off from Kepler 442b, leaving the unconscious Shadow Maw behind. As they climbed toward orbit, the crew could see the massive creature beginning to stir. It would wake up soon, probably confused and angry, but it would also remember the small being that had defeated it. Back on their ships, both crews worked together to compile their reports. The scientific data they had collected was valuable, but the recording of Jake's battle would be worth far more. It would be proof that humans possessed capabilities that even they had not fully understood. This will change everything, Captain, Vexhai said as he prepared to transmit the recording to Federation headquarters. Other species will view humans very differently after seeing this. Good, Jake said from the medical bay where Dr. Hayes was treating his injuries. Maybe they will stop thinking of us as the weak species that needs protection. Within hours of the recording's transmission, it had been viewed by millions of beings across the Federation. The image of a human defeating a Shadow Maw with his bare hands became the most famous piece of footage in galactic history. Scientists, military leaders, and ordinary citizens all watched in amazement as Jake Morrison accomplished the impossible. The Zephyrians were among the most affected by what they had witnessed. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that advanced technology was the key to survival. Seeing a human defeat their most feared predator using nothing but primitive combat techniques challenged everything they believed about strength and survival. We must learn from this, Dr. Clichter said as he studied the data from Jake's victory. There is clearly more to human capability than we previously understood. The story of Commander Jake Morrison and the Shadow Maw spread throughout the galaxy, becoming a legend that would inspire countless others. It proved that sometimes the most advanced solution was the oldest one, the courage to face the impossible with determination and bare hands. Jake Morrison had become a symbol of human potential, showing the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology, but their unwillingness to give up when faced with overwhelming odds. The legend of the human who crushed an apex predator barehanded would be told for generations to come.